Hi, I'm Alex Howard, and welcome to Conscious 2, and welcome to Technology and Awakening, a free 3-hour live stream with Karen Johnson and Hameed Ali, founders of the Diamond Approach. We're here in Berkeley, California. We're really excited you're joining us for this dive into how can we use technology in a way which can support our inner practice rather than be something that gets in the way of it. We're here with a small in-person audience, which are really going to act as the vehicles for you guys at home asking some of the questions that you may have. We also want to encourage you to send in your own questions. The best way to do that is below this video, you'll see a comment section. And as we go through the event, please do post any observations, anything you want to share, any questions, any comments. And at a few points through the event, I'll put those questions to Karen and to Hameed. I also want to encourage you to turn off any devices you're not using. We're so used to these days getting distracted, doing one thing whilst texting and whilst looking at Facebook. And although there can be maybe a time and place for that, this is a chance to really dive into your inner experience. So please turn off anything except what you're using to view this on. I also want to ask you to get a pen and paper. You may well want to make some notes. We're going to be doing some exercises as we go through the event. And that'd be a really helpful way supporting you in doing those and recording your process. Also, towards the end of the event, we're going to be letting you know about a 6-week online course, taking a much deeper dive into all of this. So please do stay tuned to find out more about that as well. But let's go and get started. So I'd like to welcome Karen and Hameed. Thank you so much for being here with us. It's a really exciting event for us, and I know it's the first time, it's the first event for Diamond Approach online. And so I thought a good starting point would be for people which are new to the Diamond Approach, maybe a few words about that, but also maybe a few words about why you now felt it was time to start to bring the Diamond Approach into this technological age, I guess, that we find ourselves in.
Well, our work is really about being in the world and not tethered to it, in the sense of not being able to engage in the world with all of the knowledge that's present, all of the lifestyles or way of life, or whoever you are, whatever you are in the world is of value. And we have technology, we have psychology, we have spirituality, we have many, many different resources. And it's important that we use all of them to our benefit rather than our destruction. So since technology is really becoming a main way of communicating, it seems really appropriate to learn how to utilize that for our spiritual benefit.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that for me feels really exciting about this is it seems that a lot of the ways that spiritual teachings generally meet technology is just don't use it. You know, it's like it's something that only gets in the way. Mm-hmm. And part of what's been really exciting for me about this exploration we've been putting together, and we've been filming the last few days content for a 6-week course that we'll talk about later, but is the ways that actually technology can be a support. It can actually be used in ways that actually can be useful.
It can be useful, and it can also be optimizing, not just useful, but actually encouraging. It can be, it can spread good tidings and well-being and presence. And we have this internet that's a worldwide occurrence, that we can get information and use it well or not use it so well, but it's also what we put out into it. And if we put out goodwill, that can spread, be contagious.
It's a good kind of virus.
Our work is particularly is spiritual work, which means inner work to connect with our being, with our true nature, and be able to live our life in a that authentic way. But it is not a spirituality that is apart from life. It's a spirituality within life that expresses itself in life and all the situations of life. And now our life includes technology, and especially the new technology, which is digital technology, right? And so we want to extend our spiritual awareness and spiritual practice into the technology and through the technology, and it's part of our life, it's inseparable from our life, so it will need to be included. We can't see it as a difficulty. It's just like we can't see other kind of technology as airplanes or that as a problem. It is a help, and it could be a problem, but it is a help. It can be help, and that is, so this is our attempt, beginning of seeing how much of our work we can communicate through the web.
Yes.
It was slow in coming, but it also
Yeah.
became more and more obvious that it's just part of our life. And since we're not a monastic tradition, we feel it's important to embrace it and begin to use it for the benefit of others and to be able to put out the Diamond Approach. And this is also exciting because we're in partnership with you as our first program of our Diamond Approach online department that we're starting here in the school. So it's been lovely to work with you to do this.
That's
We're
right.
learning a lot from you about technology and what it takes, actually.
Well, thank you. You know, it's for me, I should confess up front, I've been a student at school for the last 15 years. So it's also for me, it's really wonderful to work with you guys and to, partly bring the teaching to a younger generation, which is something which for me I feel very passionate about. But I was interested, as we've been exploring over the last few days together and filming the course content, that one of the mediums that's being used to develop the work between you two has been technology.
Yes.
That was kind of sweet, and I want to just say a few words about that as well.
Well, it started long ago with just landlines. Hameed lived in California. I lived in Denver after we had both lived in Boulder together. He moved to California. So we would inquire over the landlines together. And as technology has grown, computers have become part of our communication over email and so on. Now we both live in California. We use texting and our phones, and in the mornings when we text each other, it's time to meditate. We use that device to connect us within time and space to allow us to be catapulted outside of time and space. So it works very nicely for us.
Nice.
It helps us to explore where we are and connect, and it develops the work that way.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I also want to invite in, we have a in-person audience here. In a sense, you guys are the voices of people at home. One of the things on Conscious 2 that we like to try and do is create the intimacy and transmission of an in-person event for people at home. So it's not just a case of Karen and Hameed just talking to a camera, but also that you guys can really interact. So I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you very much. And yeah, I shall let you guys lead into the beginning of our adventure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have to admit that's the first confession I've ever received, so that's a whole new thing too. That's a first.
Well, I was mindful that we work with a lot of different kind of organizations, and it's like, this is the one that I really wanted to work with. So
Yeah, we really don't expect confessions, but I appreciate it.
Maybe more confessions will come out as
Maybe.
the morning unfolds.
Yeah.
We divulge.
Discoveries too.
Yeah, discoveries.
Confession and discoveries and exploration. And since we're doing a whole meeting on exploration of technology in relation to awakening, which means to awakening to our reality, to who we truly are, being ourselves, being present ourselves. So we want to begin with an exercise in presence, a practice that we can all learn to do, which we'll utilize throughout the meeting, because part of the way we are conducting this meeting is to include the practice of presence. So in this practice, the way we do it is you're sitting in a chair, you try to sit in straight back, as straight as you can, well, comfortably, and you close your eyes with your hands over your legs. It's best done with eyes closed. And usually, after we teach you this exercise, you can do it every morning, actually. First thing in the morning, after you wake up and go to the bathroom, you begin your day of how to live consciously. So this exercise begins by first sensing your right foot. Feel your right foot. Sensing it, not thinking about it, not imagining, but sensing it, feeling it. Inside it, outside it, the pressure, the texture. And you feel as if your foot is full of sensation. Some of us might have gaps in the sensations, and some of us might feel it fully. You feel it as if it's full of almost of a fluid of sensation that flows up. So the sensing moves up to your right ankle, moves up slowly to the right leg, sensing and feeling the calf, leg, as if it's becoming teeming with sensations, living sensations, till you get to the knee, the right knee. You feel the knee, inside, outside. Doesn't matter how it feels. The point is just to sense it and feel it with your nerve ends. That is a grounding exercise that brings us down to the moment, to the here and now, by inhabiting our body, by being present in our body. And then as you feel the knee, you feel the sensation going up the right thigh, slowly filling the thigh, lower thigh, upper thigh, until you get to the right hip and hip joint. And you feel the hip joint, sense it inside and outside, the texture, the temperature, the contact with the chair. When you feel that, if you settle there, then you move your attention to your right hand, feeling your right hand, your fingers, your palm of your hand, the back of your hand, the inside of your hand. So your hand becomes like full of the living sensation, because we're alive in the body. And our aliveness, we feel it mostly through sensation. And then the sensation flows up to the right wrist, going up, the right arm, all the way to the right elbow, and then from the elbow to the right upper arm, feeling, sensing the upper arm, teeming with sensations. Because when you sense it, it becomes alive, becomes more present. Until we get to the right shoulder. You feel the right shoulder, sense the right shoulder. It might be stiff, might be relaxed, might be hunched, whatever it is, just feel it, sense it. You don't need to do anything to it. Then you switch to the left shoulder, the left shoulder joint, sensing it, feeling it, with the sensation flowing down the arm, the upper arm, filling the arm all the way to the left elbow, and then down the lower arm. Feel as if it's actually flowing. Feel it as if it's almost a warm fluid that has full of sensation and capacity to sense. But it's just sensation really, and then goes into your left hand. Rest the hand, inside the hand, palm of the hand, back of the hand, all the way to the fingers, all the way to the fingertips. And as you feel your hand, now you shift your attention again to your left hip and hip joint. Just sense it. Thoughts, feelings, whatever can come up, let them come, let them go. Don't be concerned with them. Just stay with the focus on the sensation. Because this is a concentration practice. So you might get distracted, that is fine, but you always want to come back. So you're feeling now your left hip and down to the left thigh becoming present to you, you're aware of it, you're feeling it, to the left knee, down the left knee, to the left leg, feeling the leg, sensing it, temperature, pressure, texture, all the way to the left ankle, flowing down to the left foot, the whole foot, feeling the heel, palm of the foot, inside of the foot, upper side part of the foot, might even feel the bones, the joints, all the way to the toes. Toes become sensitized, aware of them, feeling them. Now we've gone all the way around, from right all the way up and down. And now you just sense all of it, both arms, both legs at the same time. Sensing your arms and legs like this, some kind of focused way, is a way of bringing our attention, our consciousness into our body. The rest of the body, the trunk, will come on its own. You don't need to focus on it. The arms and legs is enough for this exercise. It's an ancient exercise, and it might be the first time it's actually introduced on the web. But it came down the ages this way. So you feel your arms and legs together. And the more you actually practice this exercise, the more you feel you are here. You are in your body. And you might feel a sense of sensation, sense of aliveness, sense of palpable here-ness. And for people who've done it for long time practice, you could actually feel a sense of living kind of palpable presence filling your body, filling you, becoming you. The consciousness that senses can recognize itself, feel its own aliveness. And now, as you're sensing both arms and legs, I would like you to slowly open your eyes without losing the sensing and adding, looking, and listening. So you're focused on yourself by sensing. Now you're adding the environment, the surround, by looking and listening. So this way we're aware of the inside and aware of the outside. And we would like, it's the best way to go through this meeting, this couple of hours, is to continue sensing our arms and legs while we are here, while we are doing this, while you're listening to us, and while you're doing your exercises that we're going to put you through to explore technology and awakening. So awakening means to recognize who and what we are. Because most of the time people believe they know who they are, but what people know is what they feel, what they think they are, which has a lot to do with history, with beliefs and ideas and stories about oneself, but not the immediacy of what we are at this very moment. So awakening means to wake up to what you intrinsically are at the moment. And technology, of course, we're talking about digital technology, the web, the devices, the mobile phone, the smartphones or iPads and computers and all kind of devices that have become very important for our life. It's very
Even
rare.
Cars.
Yeah, yeah. Right. It's difficult to find somebody who isn't with some kind of device. And when we're sitting in our office, we're surrounded by them, usually by several, not just one. So there's an interaction happening because it's like we are all growing, developing with this new way of living our life, a new way of transacting our life, expressing our life, and communicating with other people. A large part of technology has to do with communication. You know, social media and telephones and Skype and WhatsApp and all of that. It's all about communication, relating to each other. So it adds a whole thing. It's called social media, which makes me wonder how social is social media. Right? That's a good question. Is it really making us be more connected, more social, or doing something else? So for obviously technology has added a whole dimension to all of humanity, not just to each of us individually. It connected the globe, connected the world, connected nations and people and groups, and so you're not only connected with your friends, the whole world connected, the world of business, the world of industry, the world of politics, All of us now is much more connected. And that is a savory kind of effect. That's what we want to happen. But as we know, it also can affect us in ways that we might not anticipate, in the sense some of us think we're connected that way. We're talking with our friends, we have conversing with them. But is the conversation, is the connection, is the contact as complete, as deep, as human as it can be in person, in the flesh? Or what happened? What's the difference? See? So, as you know, for instance, communicating through emails has its limitation, because the other person might not know exactly what you mean by a certain thing or another. Texting might be a little better because they could respond to you. If you do more video contact, it's more complete. If they're sitting right in front of you, you can see their body cues and all of that, so the communication more complete. So it gives us a new opportunity, but also it limits the depth or range or dimensionality of communication or contact. So it adds something, but it also takes away something. And we want to be aware of both of those. So we learn how, by recognizing what it does to us, how the devices and the web and all that have their own way of operating and how we use them, we learn to be conscious of that. And by being conscious of that, we can learn how to use them in a way that we could continue being conscious, we could continue sensing our arms and legs, not forget to be present, not forget that we are human, that we are real humans, not become just cyber connected. We don't want to become just cyber. We don't want to become just digital bits, a mind interacting with other mind that has developed as its own vocabulary, so it communicates with zeros and ones, basically, which is good. It adds a whole other new possibilities, but we want to be aware of the new possibilities so we can use it, but we will also be aware of what is the limitation of this possibility, so that we don't allow that limitation to limit us, limit who we are, and limit our interaction with each other. So we can bring our humanity, the fullness of our hearts, and the fullness of our being in the communication, and how to do that. So the beginning we're saying here is that to be able to bring ourselves into the technology is to first to be aware of ourselves. We need to be connected with ourselves, not to forget ourselves while we are on our devices. When we are on our computer, writing away or surfing the web, not to get lost in the web. You see, because many of us get lost in the web. After a while, there is just the web. Well, how about what happens to you? Where are you then? What are you? You see, what are you besides being the manipulator of the device? You see, and the question here is that we've been wondering about, which I think is a good thing for everybody to contemplate, is the devices and the technology is for us to use to enhance our life and to expand it so we can actualize more of our potential, and so that humanity develops and benefits. But how much by now is the technology using us? How much it's influencing us? How much that what we do, what we think of doing, is because the devices are there. They're dictating how we think, what we choose and when. So it's a balance that needs to happen. And we're saying if we're not aware of ourselves, if we lose our sense of presence, sense of our humanness, sense that we are real beings, not digital beings. We are not devices ourselves. We're not mechanical devices. We are living, dynamic, organic being, and not only organic physically, but we are a consciousness. And the more we practice any spiritual practice, the more we realize we're not just a body, we are a pure consciousness, we are real presence. And how we not lose that as we communicate and how we use our technology, but bring that through the technology and communicate it so that it gets through the cable, through the tower, through the satellites, so that our consciousness actually reaches the other people we're communicating with. So our heart touches their hearts. It's not just digital information arriving there. How we can use the devices so that they become conduits of as much of us as possible. It might be somewhat limited, and maybe the technology will develop in the future so that more of us can be there, can get through the cables and the towers and the servers.
I think one of the difficulties in this day and age is that the mobile phone has brought technology into a kind of situation where it goes with us everywhere. It's not just sitting in our offices being surrounded by everything, but we're actually taking it with us everywhere. Because I think most people who are watching or who are here grew up with television. And there was a big upset about TV taking over the family life and all of that. And it just became integrated. But even TV has become quicker and faster. And if you are watching something, it's like one shot after another. Everything is constant stimulation. So we have this stimulation, and then we're taking that stimulation with us wherever we go. So there's a constant inflow of information and a constant movement into this device that is with us all the time, and it enhances our tendency to be disembodied, which is why we're bringing in the exercise of presence, of sensing your arms and legs, because that disembodied kind of virtual world is many people's lives, just like television. Some people watch a certain program and these people become their best friends, kind of. They enter this family or enter that situation. We're habituated to the certain kinds of stimulations. We're attracted to some, we're going against others, but it's just the constant barrage of it. And that we're needing to take a look at the relationship we have to the stimulation, but the devices that stimulation's coming through, and how we're using it, how we're impacted by it. So we usually begin in our work by taking a look at the relationship of where we are right now to it. Rather than jumping into something else, we want to bring in practices that help us to put a little more ballast on the side of being present. But while doing that, we want to wake up to the fact that we're not awake. And we do that by seeing, where are we now? What's our real relationship to these devices and to this stimulation?
Yeah. So I think first let's do a little experiment, especially for people online, for instance, is to see how many times have you used your devices since we started talking.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, we got your Orion, you guys. So,
so here,
my guess is
you're
not
probably
very
not
much.
using them much, but who knows? You might have thought of using them. They felt the impulse of how to turn on one or the other. But for many people who are not here listening, we were asked to turn off the devices. I wonder how many people have actually turned them off. And did you turn off all of them? or which one did you not turn it off? And
Maybe the useful one that you're watching us on.
Right.
That would be good. That's practical,
Yeah.
useful, good, focused.
yeah, and it's bringing the question that happens because of the new technology is that people getting used to multitasking because of the devices. We having a conversation while we are also on the phone texting, or we are reading a book or listening to me, for instance. At the same time, you're surfing the web, right? Or so I wonder how many people who are watching this program are doing other things with their other devices. What kind of thing are you doing? Are you texting? Are you surfing the web? Are you sort of checking some YouTubes? Are you checking the definitions of some words? Or the biography of Karen or me? What are you doing, right? Or maybe some of you have really turned them all off, and which makes me wonder, how does it feel that you have turned them all off, that you don't have your devices on? Right. Like here, everybody here, you're not using your devices because you're sitting here listening.
Couple people. Yeah.
So maybe some people have devices.
That's fine. Doesn't
And
mean
so it makes me feel, make me wonder how you feel that you don't have your devices accessible to you right here, or you're not using them.
Or do you know where they are? Like they ask you on TV, do you know where your children are? Do
Yeah.
you know where your phone is?
That's an important item these days.
Yeah.
Right.
How far are you from it?
Yeah.
How
Your
comfortable are you being far from it?
Yeah. Your iPad.
Just remember the last
Yes.
time you lost it and what happened to you.
Yeah. How does it feel not to use it for now 30 minutes or so? For some people, these 30 minutes not to use the device is a long time. So any comments about so far about in relation to devices or technology, about not using them for a while? How does it feel? Did you feel impulses or memories of them, and try to remember where they are, whether you turn them on or off? What happened?
You know, I can say when we were flying over, it was the longest I'd been off the internet since I last flew on a long-haul flight.
Yeah.
And I remember the first kind of half hour of the flight, I was kind of reaching for my phone, picking it up, and then I can't read my email. It's just such an instinctive thing, you know. You just, in fact, my wife and I have 2 little girls, and they have their these muslins, like kind of cloths, and they're kind of their kind of comfort blankets. And the joke in our house at one point was my phone was my comfort blanket. It was like the thing that you kind of reach for. So yeah, that's just my little kind of.
It's something we
of it.
resort to.
Right, exactly.
Something we resort to for all kind of needs that we want to become conscious. We might not be conscious of at this time. What kind of need they fulfill? That we reach for the device, do something with the device, or use several devices at the same time.
Yeah, I had a similar thing that happened on a flight. I reached for my phone to make sure I knew where it was for when I got off, and it had turned itself on during the flight. And I go, oh my God. So it was like, it had a life of its own. It was kind of coming on. I just wanted to know where it was, and it was saying, hi, use me.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's a comment, yeah.
Yeah, in response to your question, I noticed that it was quite easy not to use the device, and didn't didn't feel a problem here, because
Yeah.
I feel very supported by the presence of you and Karen and other
Yeah.
people. So, and I'm noticing a distinction between this kind of support and what I experience when I'm alone,
Yeah.
and how rely on those devices as a substitute for the support that I'm getting here from the people.
Yeah. So when you're alone, how long do you can go without using devices?
Not too long.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
kind of bashfulness about it,
Yeah.
and I'm noticing that definitely has this addictive quality.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very important word to use. Addictive.
Yeah,
It
like I
becomes an
experience it
addiction.
as an addiction.
Yes, I think for most people now it's an addiction. They can't stop. So that's what I mean. They're using us. They can control us to the extent that we become dependent on them. The interesting thing I was thinking about, for spiritual awakening, the idea is to be independent from everything else in terms of being ourselves. Being ourselves shouldn't be dependent on anything. But now we don't only need to depend on our other people, our possessions, and our thoughts. We have our devices also to depend on, and the whole world of internet. So it expands the support for the usual sense of self, which we call ego, which makes it more difficult to just simply be
Yes.
ourselves. Yeah, another person.
I notice that it tends to relate to the ongoing impulse to occupy my mind.
Yeah.
It used to be that there would be situations in which it was difficult to occupy my mind. If I'm online at the bank, I'm confronted with boredom or the difficulty with just remaining with myself and not actually doing anything. But with a smartphone in my pocket, I can occupy my mind at any time.
Yeah.
So it serves that sort of restlessly seeking need for entertainment or stimulation.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's one thing I was wondering. What is it we want usually? What are the needs? What do we get? What do we want from our devices, from our connectivity, and all? And besides, what do we want? What do we actually get? Do we all know what we get? We could say we could get information, we get communication, but what else? We might be getting unconsciously to satisfy some deep psychological need that we might not be aware of. Okay.
So I just took a picture of this whole thing and posted it to Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And so
How
so
did
you're
you feel while you were doing that?
excited.
Uh-huh.
So you're all famous now. And but I notice what I want is attention.
Uh-huh.
You know, I want those narcissistic supplies.
What's the excitement feel like as you were doing that? What's the
It
feeling?
felt, well, I was anticipating some future fun moment. Some kind
future
of
what?
future fun, stimulating moment.
Future
Yeah.
stimulation.
Yeah, and now I'm wondering, like, who's clicked like, and, you know.
So who's going to respond to you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to like me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What if you get no response?
Then I'll be sad.
Yeah.
And then I'll feel rejected
Uh-huh.
and not special.
Yeah.
So is that common to other relational kinds of interactions, or is this just what happens on the internet?
No, it's pretty typical of my other relations, yeah.
Okay, so it's sort of an extension of your usual self in relation to others, but it's out into the world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can be a little more, like, pre-calculated about it and
Uh-huh.
try to scheme up better
have a little
ways.
more control over it.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's not so real time.
Yeah, more control, more access, more people to access.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's more likely someone
More
will
stimulus,
respond.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can get attention no matter
That's
where I
true.
am in the world.
Right.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone else had a comment.
Yeah.
In some ways, for me, my family is all in India, and so in some ways, for me, it's a way of connecting to people that I can't connect with otherwise.
Yeah.
And also, like Marshall was saying, it's a reflection in some ways of the abundance of connection that's actually available for us
Yeah.
as an organism in some sense of consciousness.
Yeah.
So that's what it feels like for me.
Yeah, that's one of the positive things about being able to use the internet for connection is when we're away from those we love, it helps us to connect with them, to feel their presence in our lives in a more intimate way. So it can bring intimacy as well as distance us from it. But that's a very important thing, keeping families communicating, connecting, whereas a letter used to take eons, you can connect in an instant. So that's a positive side. Yeah. All of our inventions are blessings and curses, promise and difficulties together. It's how we use them. It's a very neutral thing, but it's how we use it that brings in one or the other.
The instant responsiveness that we get is actually a double-edged sword, the way I see it.
Yeah.
I remember the times when people communicate with me, they send me letters, right? It takes a few days to get to the letter, and take my time in writing the letter and sending back. It takes 2-3 weeks to communicate. Now I get 20, 40 emails a day, and many people want a response right then. And so, not to mention the texting and the messages, both on my landline and my mobile phone, all of that. As a result, a lot of my time is taken up by that. So it's filling time that I used to have empty. I used to be just have free time. I could do what I want. Now I am compelled to have to communicate. So it is true, to giving us a possibility of communication, but it's also compelling us to communicate much more than human beings were throughout history needed or had to. So communication is good, but it could be over communication, like more than we, and keeps us busy. It's like our life is fast, getting faster and faster and faster, because we have to respond back and forth, and if each one of them is about a project or about an idea, how many of them are we dealing with at the same time? And how healthy that is. It helps productivity, maybe our government's happy about that, but how about our life, about our happiness, about our realness, what's happening to it? Okay, another question there.
Yeah, I was just going to share that I actually feel relief having my phone turned off, and that I'm always looking for an excuse to turn my phone off. So when I'm in a situation where I feel like there's a legitimate reason to not be available, I feel great about that. And I feel acutely aware of being used by technology. That side of it feels, I have conflict around that. I notice, like with Facebook, for example, I feel tons of pressure to be on Facebook because, to your point, Karen, you know, my family's on there, they're sharing all these things that are happening, it's all really good, but it's also really consuming. And I love all of them dearly. And I find myself really taxed with, you know, I just have commitments for work and things like that. And I'm always looking for just downtime. And it seems like it's harder and harder and harder to actually get downtime. And I feel like something actually happens when I have downtime where I develop in a certain way. And so it feels like a like something gets cut out that's really important to me, and I don't know what to do about it. It's a conflict, and I'm very torn. And so sometimes I'm on Facebook in spurts, and then it's like I check out for a good long while, and I have no idea what's going on with anybody, and then I find out again, and it's just a sort of back and forth thing where I feel conflicted.
What do you think will happen if you don't keep checking it? What if you don't get those bits of information everybody else is getting?
What does happen is that I'll join, go to a family gathering or something and find out that so-and-so had
I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
Sorry, Karen. I go to like a family gathering
Oh.
and find out that something, big happened in somebody's life, and I missed it. I didn't know that had happened because they're so used to communicating on Facebook that they assume that everybody's getting the information that way. So I feel bad, actually. I feel like, I should have known that happened.
I see.
So there's that kind of I'm, am I a Luddite or something? I'm not participating in something that everybody else seems to be.
Right. So you're bringing up a really important issue, which is how to be okay with not having all that information. That you love them, how can you convey that without necessarily having to know every bit that's happened? And that's a difficult one, and we each have boundaries around that. But with all of the information, people have an expectation now. An expectation that you know something, an expectation that you're going to be a certain way, or convey something when you see them because you should have seen it. And that is one of the challenges of what does it mean to be authentic, to be able to be in where you are, find the time and the place to have downtime for yourself. And different people have different needs for that. We're not saying everybody should have tons of downtime or not or whatever. It's how we use it. But you want downtime, you need to find a way to do that and be able to have a boundary around that and create it in a way that doesn't discount other people's need to be known and to have you know that information. So how do we convey our love, our appreciation, and our interest without always being barraged by the littlest thing Susie did today, and oh my God, she took her first step, and I missed it, or your third cousin twice removed just had a baby, and where does it end and what feels right?
Well, I'm just glad that you brought up the word authentic, because this particular challenge for me has made it, has really supported me in trying to find what is authentic for me. So it's been a good exercise in that regard to refine that for myself, but it's ongoing.
Yeah, what feels real, not just what is the expected participation. Yeah, thank you.
One thing I was thinking that many people, especially the younger, the more, is that the communication is instant. I mean, almost continuous, the communication. I know many younger people, family, they do things I don't do. For instance, they're having meal, they take a picture of their meal and they send an Instagram to their friend. Here's what I'm eating. And the other person responds, well, this is what I'm drinking. And it's like, it's all a continuous sharing of one's life with, and I haven't done that. I don't think I want to do that. Unless one of those days I am having really some unusual meal that is, maybe I want somebody to know about it. But I don't necessarily feel I have to send it right away. I might take a picture of it maybe later. But there's this instant, continual communication, which makes me wonder what's happening inside the people who are doing that. Many young people might not even know that you can actually sense your arms and leg, feel what's it like inside, beside sending, texting, sending Instagram, not know what else, what are they beside that. I would like the devices to develop so that a person can send me a picture of what's happening inside their consciousness,
Yeah.
in their body. That will be interesting for
Yeah.
me. I don't know if I care how much about what they're eating. I, you know, in
I'm
relation
feeling
to
kind and my
what they're
heart looks
feeling,
like this.
you
Yeah.
see.
So one of the things that we wanted to bring in today that you're all bringing out really has to do with these devices can exaggerate our tendencies that are already existing there, of getting more superficial in various ways, and everyone has their own style of it, but we can be expressing our psychology and our conflicts, our distortions, and good things too. But it tends to take us to very superficial levels. And like I said before, that there's a tendency to be less and less embodied, which takes us out of our now experience. It takes us out of our bodies, out of our hearts, and puts us into our mind. We lose heart. We don't actually express ourselves in a full and complete way. We're expressing ideas, or we become part of a virtual network, and our life becomes abstract. We become more and more abstract, but it becomes more and more of a mental life, in the sense that we're having lots of information, lots of flow of ideas, some contact with family members. We're using it also in positive ways. But the more we're using our devices, the more the habitual nature of our ego starts to get engaged. Just the habit of having to know where it is and constantly looking at it. I heard a statistic the other day of we look at our phones for about an average, that means sometimes it's much more, of 150 times a day for various things. For some people, that's very little. But just to think of how many times you do that in an hour, it's a significant amount of looking at your phone. So there's ways we're expressing ourselves without much self-reflection also. Some people feel emboldened to just say whatever's on their mind, and that has actually gotten people into trouble, of just expressing themselves about something, posting something on a blog, and all of a sudden their reputation is ruined because it feels like you're in your own little bubble with your own little mind, just saying whatever you want to, but the whole world knows. For other people, it's they want the whole world to know something, but they don't really think about what they're saying. Or sometimes there's some very thoughtful, useful, interesting things put out, but we're talking about looking at the habitual, compulsive nature of it that's actually expressing things that we need to actually work out instead of just have expressed constantly. That we need to be aware of what we're expressing and pull that back a bit and take a look at, what did I just say? What's the impulse to say this thing right now to this person? Instead of waiting, thinking, being thoughtful, not shooting off that email right now or that text message, but taking a look at what is it we're really expressing. And that goes for those who actually have some sense of presence, have some realization. You pick up the phone or you go to the grocery store and then that's all gone. It goes away. The minute, it's almost like that phone is a button to some kind of activity that disregards what you do know about yourself. And that's not always the case. Sometimes you can send somebody a lovely, loving message. It's received. That's very satisfying. But where the culture in general is headed is that these phones are becoming a part of the body. They're not even just like the TV. You go in, you turn it on, you turn it off, you go to bed. These phones are on all the time. They're within a foot of you most of the time. People that have grown up with this as an appendage have an entirely different sense of what it means to communicate, what it means to read social cues, what it means to have empathy, to feel where someone's coming from, to be able to touch someone when they're in pain or sharing joy face to face. Eye-to-eye contact is becoming a lost art. Now, many of us grew up with television, not with mobile phones, so it's more like an add-on. We're somewhere in between, but it's still informing us, and we can still feel the habitual nature of it.
Yeah, it just hit me that we are really in a transitional time in history in terms of technology, in the sense at the present time there are two sort of major generations in terms of relationship to digital technology and app. There's the generation who learned, who are older, where the technology is developing, so they're learning it and how to use it, and it becoming now more and more part of their lives. And those people usually, from what I know, many of them spend a great deal of their time looking for their phones. Where is it? Where did it go? It's different from the younger generation. The younger generation sort of is growing with the technology. The technology is part of their very identity. You know, it's with them. It's like your phone is just like part of your body, and your iPad is part of your natural biological equipment. And these two generations, the question of identity, social identity, and who you are is a little different. And we are, it struck me, we are at a transition, because in 30, 40 years, everybody will be of the second kind. Well, everybody will grow up from the beginning with, and I'm wondering, as we go there.
Well, they're talking about implanting things now.
Right, so will anybody know what's it like not to be with devices?
Right. Well, I think that's the point, is that devices are here to stay. Yeah. What do we bring to them, rather than how are they training us to be like them? How are they bringing a way of being that really is robbing us from our human, in the flesh kinds of contact? So our identities are being shaped and formed by our use of technology, which means we need to really find what is our identity beyond those things. And that means not just our identity as who we grew up as and not being too stimulated and all of those kinds of things, but to really know who we are, to really be beyond all those things. And to be present means to know our identity beyond even our own mind, even the inner chatter, the inner stimulation that's already there. And that's really what the devices are kind of taking the place of. They're giving us chatter instead of our own inner chatter. Or they're a combination of our inner chatter with outer chatter, and it just becomes chatter and chattering and noise after a while, instead of real information, when we're using it in that particular way. Of course, many of us get on the web and we're looking for information. We learn a lot. It's very enriching. It teaches us to think in different ways. That's all good. But the habitual use is a form of chatter that keeps that interactivity going. Yes, a couple of comments.
Yeah, it's interesting to listen to people's relationship to messages and email messages. I generally feel free not to respond to phone calls, text messages, email messages until I'm ready to do it. Sometimes I'll let messages sit for days before I get around to responding to them.
And people get mad at you, don't they?
Sometimes they do, yeah.
It's like the lag time is not okay anymore.
Yeah, and it's also, I suppose, an expression of my own sort of personality structures.
Backing off.
Distancing. So there's also that sort of guarding.
That's a good point.
Myself.
Our personality structures get expressed in how we use it, when we use it, in what ways we use it. When we distance, we can distance through a lot of use of them. We can distance from the person we're around. In fact, I heard the term fubber the other day. Are you a fubber? And I thought, what in God's name is a fubber? A fubber is a phone snubber who is actually texting while you're walking down the street with your partner or friend who wants the contact, and you're snubbing them by using your telephone. So you can distance by using the phone, or you can distance yourself from technology by setting it aside, and you feel it as distancing. So that's a good thing to note. It can be for another person a positive thing to set it aside. So again, setting it aside can be a good thing, to take time, to be thoughtful in that response, not have it take you over. For another person, they may distance from technology completely. I know some people like that, and they don't get the communications they need. They get kicked off of committees because they're not in the loop. So there's balance. I think what we're really looking at is balance, what it means to have balance, but also to look at the ways our personalities use these devices to express the personality, our defenses, our needs for distance, our needs for optimal distance. Where is that? Our need for gratification, our need to be seen, our need to be special, our need to be noticed, our need to be seen as brilliant, or whatever it is we're posting. Or, gee, I'm the goofy class clown, look at this cool picture I just got with a pie on my face, whatever it might be. So we're expressing ourselves, it's giving us a big venue for expressing whatever we are. Also, the kids that are posting airbrushed ideals of themselves. This is who I am. I am cuter and more beautiful than you ever thought, and smarter because I came up with this fabulous quote that I really stole from someone else on the web. But image making happens a lot also. So there was another insight back there.
Also, I'd just say, just for people watching at home, if you want to send in questions, some of you may be aware that there's such interest in the topic, we managed to crash our website.
Yeah.
Byron and Katie couldn't crash our website, Muji couldn't crash our website, but well done,
Yeah.
we crashed our website.
Oh.
So at the start we sent out another link that people have got, so we've got several thousand people watching, so it's all fine, but we're going to use the comments on the live stream page. So for people that are watching on the second link we sent, they can post questions on there. You can also post them on the web page as well. And you just answered actually one of the questions that was up there, so I'm not going to ask it now. But please do, people if they want to send in questions, put them on there. They're being fed to me using my iPad. So it's a great way for people at home to be part of the conversation as well. But, yeah.
So when we're talking about this notion of are we using the technology or is it using us, and this idea that in some ways it's making us like it, it brings up this idea for me. It maybe is a little far out, but I'm curious about it, which is, and I know the idea is out there. On the one hand, there's this notion that humans are the ones who've created the technology. That's part of being human. We're tool-making animals. And this is just the double-edged sword of, we make the technology, but somehow we get addicted to it. But then there's also this notion that almost as if, there's some intelligence in the technology that has its own purpose or something. And you see in the collective imagination, a lot of these science fiction movies, play with this idea as if there's like some alien race that is machine-like, and has a sort of an agenda. And I know that's perhaps maybe a more of a fear-based perspective, but it's sometimes I feel curious about it, because it seems like if there were an intelligence, it seems like to know how to play on humans' sort of tendencies to take us away from our humanness. So I just thought I would raise it. Because I know that idea is out there, and sometimes I'm curious about it.
Well, I think it's been borne out over time that it doesn't take a lot to get humans to leave their humanity. We can see it in people's small actions daily, that we can be thoughtless, insensitive, not present in many, many ways, and there's also great acts of kindness happening every day. We can go both directions, and I think it's how we use technology that's going to put it in one position or another. I don't know that I would say I believe there's an alien race that is infiltrating the internet and making us habituated to it. I think we're predisposed to that kind of behavior, as we can see with drugs, as we can see with, I mean, our reptilian brain loves to do things over and over and over again, and when it gives us pleasure, that's even better. But awakening means that we're not controlled by our brain, and we can move back from all of that kind of impulsive behavior and not have that rule us. But that's part of what practice is all about. And that's what it means to learn to be present, to not go with the impulses, but to learn really where you're coming from. When you're coming from being, it's not an impulsive functioning. So, but first it means getting in touch with what being is. And then the next step is really learning how to function from there, because part of our functioning is also habitual. Functioning happened with our ego development. And we can take our ego development and appreciate the fact that it's helping us function, but that's not all the kind of functioning there can be. It can be much more elegant, much more fluid, more sensitive, more clean, more pure, more dynamic in a real way. And that's what we're really trying to bring to the internet, is that kind of dynamism and life to it that brings consciousness and allows that to move through it. So if there's aliens out there, come on down. Teach us what you know, and I'll be happy to talk to you, but face to face.
Yeah, close encounter, third kind and fourth kind too.
Yeah, yeah, many kinds.
Kind, yeah.
Just to bring in someone from home, someone called Searles, asking how do we rid ourselves of the addiction, but that's kind of what we're going to come into. But there's a part two, which is, I have a daughter that's addicted to iPad games, and maybe just to broaden it a bit more, that many of us have children that are growing up in a world where how we manage the reality that it is different to how it was when even when I was a kid, and certainly when you guys were younger. But how do we manage that?
Well, there's actually some very interesting information on the internet, and some very good talk shows I've listened to recently. It's interesting, since deciding to do this several months ago, I've been barraged by all kinds of information and very interesting things going on. It's very exciting how people are starting to actually become aware of the issues for children and for our daily use. So there's a lot of that information out there, but it really means to I can say a little piece of what I've watched my friends do with their children is give them the kind of contact that is possible at given times. You don't have the devices at the dinner table, pure and simple. When I was a kid growing up, we didn't have books at the dinner table. It was discussion time. You have to have discipline in when it's okay to use them and when it isn't. And watching children grow up with parents that respect the in-person encounter and bring interest to your child for who they are, that lets them feel the actual connection in the flesh and appreciate it with the touching and the hugs. And also, the more present you are to it, the more the value is able to be there both in person, and their values will be taken into the internet use as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I notice with my children that there's a kind of hierarchy of things that they want to do. And if it's being on the iPad or be bored playing by themselves, they want to be on the iPad. But if it's going and running around in the garden or jumping on the trampoline and being with an adult, They want to do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's often, it can be a lazy alternative to other
Right.
things.
Well, sometimes we hand the kid the iPad or put them in front of the TV to be a babysitter. We're training them very early.
The eye nanny is a technical term for
The
it.
eye nanny, and that can teach them how to be unpresent
Right.
really fast and train them to not know how to relate to people.
Yeah.
But what we want to do now, actually, along these lines, is to spend some time without our devices, alone, without turning them on. And this will be a challenge for those at home because you're surrounded by your devices most likely. You've got your phone nearby and are going to find this as maybe a time to text or do something with someone. But I'd like to invite you to come back to sensing your arms and legs. By the way, you'll forget. That's part of it. Struggle is part of practice. I'd like you to sense your arms and legs. And we're going to take some time to just be present with ourselves, because learning how to be alone is an extremely important part of learning how to really be with somebody else. And learning how to be alone without your devices is a first step. And that helps us move deeper into what it means to be alone, even from our own inner chatter. But we're going to start with a step, which is to see how you feel right now, at this moment, sensing your arms and legs, thinking about turning off your device. Seeing how you feel about being unplugged for 10 minutes without contacting anyone through the internet. You may be in a gathering together with people. That actually may be a helpful way to be together in silence. Sometimes being with somebody helps you to be more alone, actually. You feel the support, as someone was saying here. You feel the support of being able to be where you are. So we'd like you to spend 10 minutes sensing your arms and legs. You can close your eyes or have them open. Having them closed will help you feel the solitude a little more and not even be stimulated by the beauty or not so beautiful things in your surroundings. To just spend 10 minutes unplugged. And after 10 minutes, you'll need to time yourself, check your watch once in a while, or you can use your device in a supportive way by timing yourself.
We'll also have a timer on screen.
Okay, there'll be a
people-
timer on the
yeah.
screen, so you can keep, so you don't have to do anything. That's even better. Thank you. After 10 minutes, you could take a break, go to the bathroom, whatever. And should they be writing at that time?
Spend 5 minutes to write
Yes.
down your experience.
Write down your experience that you had during that time.
10 minutes.
What
So
it was like to be unplugged, what was going around in your mind. Were there impulses to reach for it? Did you feel grateful that someone told you to stop it? Did you feel like you just wanted to sneak a peek? What was the feeling?
Yeah,
And it might be
impatient,
lots of different
frustrated,
kinds. Yeah, it might-
So you want to just write down how it felt to you, not
What your experience was.
yeah what your experience of not using any devices and also staying just quiet without trying to do anything else, just
Right.
being yourself with yourself only.
Okay.
For
And-
10 minutes and then 5 minutes writing down the experience. So
And-
15 minutes, and
Yeah.
then we will come back.
Then we'll be back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there'll be a people at home, there'll be a countdown clock on screen. So we'll add a couple of minutes as well, so you've got a bit of time if you want to go to the loo. So we'll put about 17, 18 minutes on the clock. So you can just watch it count down, and so when it gets to 7 or 8 minutes left, it's time to write down your experience, and you can add on a few minutes,
5 minutes.
at the end. Yeah, but a couple of minutes extra, so 5
okay.
minutes as well. And if you want to share your experience more socially, more publicly, you could also share a few lines in the comment section, either if you're watching it on the Conscious 2 website, or if you're watching it on the link on the live stream website. You're welcome to share, and we'll also have a look at those and maybe share a few of those in the room as well.
Yeah, so we'll have Q&C afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll be back here, and the broadcast will continue, so you can leave it playing with the countdown clock, and we'll see you in just over 15 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so we welcome you.
So welcome back to Technology and Awakening here on Conscious 2. So just a reminder again that you can submit questions on both the live stream page. Also, if you're watching on the Conscious 2 website, you can do so on there as well. And we're going to come back to a question. It's a question from D. Michael. Question is, isn't the compulsion to have the devices close to hand and get instant feedback? That's a different question. Wondering if Hameed and Karen would like to comment on attachment. With everyone preoccupied with devices, it seems like anxious, ambivalent attachment will become the norm, and that impacts on how we feel with and to each other. So it's almost like we have different attachments set up. This is a whole new form of attachment, in a sense.
Well, it also interferes with attachment to another, which is an important part of bonding and relationship and all of that. And the device just being in the room changes the field between two people. So imagine a mother that's watching her videos and texts and whatever she's doing as she's strolling the baby, and there's not a face-to-face contact. That baby's not getting a mirroring or a contact, which is very important. And on a spiritual level, having a healthy attachment to another allows us to feel a kind of trust and ease that lets us go into those deeper recesses and spaces that we won't be able to do if there isn't that sense of ground in the world. We have the ground in the world first, and then we find our true ground within ourselves. But if that's shaky and anxiety-ridden, we're not going to be able to go inward well. So it'll propel us even further. So that's a very, very important, thoughtful question.
I think the technology is just adding more objects to be attached to, and attached to in a different way.
Yes.
Like you could see it when the new iPhone is coming out. Everybody's lining up at the store.
Especially Nick, who's doing
Yeah,
vision
I
next
mean,
thing.
you hear about people lining up from early morning trying to get the device. It's like it's a wonderful toy, and you have it. So it's both an attachment and an object of desire.
Mm-hmm.
We have new objects of desire that we didn't have before, and they're new toys, new object desires, and then
Falling
of
in
course,
love with Siri.
attachment to them, and we love them.
Yeah.
Some of us really love somebody's relation with their iPad might be more important than relationship with anybody else. See?
Well, and it's socially acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's also, I think, part of what's really interesting is how I remember when I first got a mobile phone, and I remember my aunt saying, "What do you need a mobile phone for?" It's like, are you some yuppie? Like, no one has mobile phones that's not. Of course, now everyone has mobile phones.
No, most everyone.
It's well, pretty much everyone, yeah. And it's become socially acceptable to just be, in public doing that. I think to be in a public place 15 years ago in an interactive situation and just sit and read a book, wouldn't have been socially acceptable. But somehow society has learnt to adapt and consider it normal.
Now, I want to just say one thing about attachment. I use the term attachment in a psychological way, not just an ego-grasping way. So I want to just differentiate that, because our attachments are things that we need to work through and let go of, but our attachment in terms of bonding and psychologically being able to grasp and attach is phase-specifically important for the human being. So in terms of babies and children, that's an important ingredient. But in terms of what Hameed's talking about, it's actually we're learning to bond with these objects, and that's taking away from bonding with humans or ourselves. Actually, it keeps us from really being able to go in and be alone also.
Yeah, because our orientation, our work is how to be excited about discovering ourselves. I get really excited and turned on when I discover a new condition of being, a new dimension of reality. I get excited by having a new phone, but it's nothing like the excitement of finding a whole inner universe. So, since our work is about finding ourselves, knowing ourselves, and discovering the wealth of reality and inside us, those out of things
It beats any website.
can become distractions, can become take us away. It's already before that, before all this technology, there are all kind of distractions. I mean, people who do spiritual work from ancient time, they had to deal with distractions all the time. Distraction jobs, distraction of activities, distraction of tasks, other people, and then distraction of their own mind, trailing away in one. And the important thing to be oneself is to have an inner solitude, to be within ourselves in such a way that we are alone, independent from any of those things, not needing them to be, not needing them for our identity. So
Even independent from one's own mind.
from ancient time, it was difficult to do that. Now, there are many more things that will distract us, that we love, we're attached to. So, like the spiritual work, in some sense, is a little more difficult now, because we have to attach to many other, detach or feel free from many other things. We're not talking about throwing them away. Detachment, not throwing them away, means I don't need them to be me, but I do need them to communicate, to accomplish certain tasks.
So that's really the trick, is to decouple identity from our use of technology. And if we can do that, then the compulsion to have it and to use it all the time won't be ruling us. So it's a matter of, it's almost as if these devices have hooked into the very stuff of attachment and the new and improved kinds of compulsive behaviors. It's actually gotten to the heart of it and sort of drawn it out of people. And so people's behavior and compulsions are visible. We're walking around as compulsive little bundles on the street. And if we can decouple our personalities and our definition of ourselves and all of that from these devices, we'll be having choice when to use it, when not to, when we need to. Some people have to sit in front of a computer all day long. It's part of their job. Then how do you manage yourself while you're doing that? We need to have communication devices. How do you use them? What is it that you're expressing? So that inner solitude lets us get in touch, be in touch with the very stuff of what we are.
I feel actually it's timely that we're doing this course, that we're doing this presentation, and that there will be a 6-week course about it where we go in depth and detail about it. Because it's timely, because we are in a transition point where the next few generations, they'll grow up with devices all the time. And they might not even know what inner solitude is. They might not know, because from the beginning, by the time you start thinking, you're already connected. And then you won't know. They won't know if the person grows up not knowing what is inner solitude, they won't know its value. What is the value of just being myself within myself, with no interference, with no impulse to go out, to simply be? Because this simply being myself, without going somewhere else, without attaching anything, without responding to anything, just being is a wormhole, is an entryway to the inner universe. The universe that makes us truly human and where all our true potential is. So the technology can help us express this potential, but I will hate to see it dampening it, disconnecting us from our potential. So I think we are in transition. It's good we're talking about it now, since the transition is going to happen, because the next generations, it's not a transition. They're already with the devices.
See how
It's good
excited he
we're
gets
talking.
about being?
You see? So I'm
That's much
glad
more
that
excited
we-
than he is about his new computer.
We're doing this at the transition point so that there is an input
Yeah.
about the possible
A way-
danger
Yeah,
and how we could turn it around and make it a help for us.
Yeah.
right.
And also, I'd love to hear a bit from these guys about
Yeah.
how it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Some enthusiasm here as well. Lots of
Yeah.
hands going up.
So I found this exercise to be wonderful.
Yes.
As I was writing in my notepad about what came up,
Yes.
it was first, I think I'm missing something.
Yes.
And then what came up after that was somebody is going to ask me about something. I won't have seen it on my iPhone, and that's going to say something about me.
What will it say about you?
Well, not positive. Is that
Uh-huh.
you're out of the loop, or you're unknowledgeable, you're not up on it,
Mm-hmm.
you're not current. And so it was useful for me to see how much value I continue to put in, this is what I know, rather than this is who I am. And I must confess that I often judge others. And I said, you haven't seen that on the internet yet? Or you haven't read that yet?
Uh-huh.
So,
Not connected, yeah.
yeah, very telling.
Mm-hmm.
For me.
So you actually wrote it with a pad and
Yeah.
pen, the ancient tradition? Yeah. How was that? Do you usually use pad and pen for various things, or?
Generally only when I'm asked to do it for an exercise. But I found that useful as well.
Mm-hmm.
Much more contactful to me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
So thank you for the exercise. What I found actually was that I got in touch more with my heart in the sense of like, what do I want to communicate?
Uh-huh.
You know, who do I want to communicate with? You know, what is being communicated?
Just raise the mic up.
And then I also got more in touch with what I need. So my body, like I need to drink some water, or I need to eat some food, and then I need to stretch. And then I feel like wanted to raise the question of the shadow of technology in some way, because we have climate change happening, for example, and technology and climate change in some ways are connected to each other. And so there's a way, I think, in which we can use technology to communicate about climate change, for example.
Yeah, so
And-
optimize the health of the planet,
And
not just our own
right.
being.
And also communicate about our love of nature.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful pictures, animals and all this kind of thing. So
Thank
just
you.
wanted to bring
Yeah,
that in
there's
as well.
many, many ways the internet can be an optimizing force. And it also can be a way that it not only disconnects us personally from ourselves, but disconnects the planet more and more from its health.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
thank
But,
you.
but there is a discrimination about the two sides, and discrimination isn't going to come from the technology. It's going
Right.
to come from us.
Mm-hmm.
We have the capacity to discriminate. We have, which means we have to be awake ourselves. We have to feel, as you said, felt your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Tuyet?
I feel the inner stillness as something very precious, and it's like coming home and resting and relaxing. And I also notice that when I hang out there, there's always something that comes up that's difficult, a feeling or a sense of disturbance either in my body or some memory that comes up. And I feel like that's the point where I usually engage in something.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it's like wanting
Yeah.
some kind of soothing. And I think that's when I maybe get on Facebook, or I can do something that allows some kind of normalization of the nervous system. So I would be really interested, as we unfold this, to know the relationship between, you know, the deep stillness that opens my heart and that feels really restful, and then disturbances that arise and, you know, that takes me out of it into action, into getting some kind of relief.
Right. Thank you. Actually, that's throughout the ages, going inward and being quiet. All the traditions have practices about how to handle and manage those things, because that's what we run into. And what the internet can help us do is actually distract us further so we don't have to feel those things. And that's part of what I think is going on with many people. It's a very defensive maneuver to not be still, to encounter what's really going on and what we feel. So for our work, getting in touch with that inner solitude and going inward and doing various practices, we take note of the kinds of content that show up, the difficult feelings, the thoughts, the conflicts, feeling of struggle, whatever it might be. And we use another practice, as you're aware, of inquiry, which we go into in the course. We don't have time to do that now. In fact, there's so many rich things coming out of the people from home, the questions, and from you all. It just opens up and unpack, you know, there's such a need to unpack more and more of this. But to be able to look then at those places that are difficult and inquire into them and look into them and find out what is the need to stay away from them. In fact, that's the main defense of ego, is to stay away from the things that are hurtful, painful, difficult, a struggle. And that's something we encounter that we need to go into. And another thing that we get in touch with are the judgments that a couple of you have brought up already. When we go inward or start to look at our behavior in any self-reflective way and are responsible with it, often we run into that critic of, I shouldn't be this way, that's not the way my ideal is, I'm not measuring up, it shouldn't, you know, and we project that onto other people. And there's ways of working with that too. There's other places you can go for that. And actually on Conscious too, there's a video in dealing with the inner critic, because that's another big barrier to going inward. Oh, I'm supposed, and even spiritually, oh, I'm supposed to find that quiet again. I can't get quiet. That's not good. I'm not doing well here. All of these judgments follow us around, and unless we learn how to deal with them, they keep us wanting to go out to the distractions. It makes the distractions much more alluring. So is there another?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I just realized that some of the addictions are more stigmatized in this society than others. And when I look at it, it's not apparent to me that there is a fundamental difference. So, like, people go to AA for substance abuse.
Right.
And I could make this AA-like statement that, you know, my name is Oleg, and I'm addicted to external stimulation. And I'm saying it not without over-dramatizing it, but also not as a joke.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what it is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Lots of confessions going on here
Yeah.
today.
Got it started.
You started. Yeah, so when you actually get that you have a habitual behavior around this, what happens in you? What do you experience?
Well, it's more than a habitual. It's like
Addiction.
there is this kind of a compulsive, addictive quality. Like, I haven't been addicted to substances. I don't know what it's like, but there is this.
Yes, you do, apparently.
Yeah, but it's like I don't know how it is with substances,
Yeah.
but with this thing,
Yeah.
it's like I know that like the first step
Yeah.
in AA is like they say, well, I have no control over it.
Yeah. What do you feel in your body as you say that?
It's kind of yuckiness.
Yucky?
Yucky.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, and some fear.
Mm-hmm.
Fear.
Huh?
Yeah, so as if you can stay with the sensation and get in touch with the fear, that might give you more information about the addiction. You might want to actually stay with and discern what the yucky feeling is. Like really using your inner app of discernment, the discerning app, to go into the yucky app.
Mm-hmm.
Let them mix and find out.
Yeah, that's one of the practices we offer is what we call technology fast,
Yeah.
which is just like what you did for 10 minutes now. We recommend that every day you take 10 minutes, you know, or a little longer, not to engage any technology and feel what's it like.
Actually, we recommend an hour. That's
Yeah.
what we have written down on our page.
Right.
But
Yes.
you could take 10 minutes here and there, and you might fail miserably at it, but then you've got maybe 55 more minutes you can do during the day. But to pick an amount of time to actually be without devices, just sense, look, and listen, not do anything, and allow yourself to let these things bubble up. That way, it is in the service of self-discovery, and then you can pick up the device and use it as a choice as you get more and more disengaged from the addictive behavior or the difficult feelings when you're alone or the judgments of, oh, I'm not going to be on top of it enough. Those are all things we need to see. Waking up,
Yeah.
we need to wake up to those things that are going on in us all the time. That's
Yeah.
part of the chatter. So it's no longer just chatter, it's starting to have discernible messages of judgments, getting in touch with the addiction, getting in touch with a yucky feeling about it, fears, feelings, all different kinds of things.
And as we see these and as they flow through, we can begin to experience the inner silence, the inner solitude, and the peacefulness of it, the quietness of it. Like I tell you how I do it myself. I do something almost every night, which is, you know, I have my mobile phone with me and my telephone. I watch TV at night sometime. But at a certain time in the evening, I turn off the TV, turn off my phones, and I usually, when I was watching TV, I usually use my Bose headphones so I could hear well. So what I do then, I disconnect the Bose headphone from the TV, but I put the noise cancellation on and just sit there, and almost dark, with a little light maybe, and just be. No noise, no, because I'm using technology so that not to have less noise. The phones are turned off. And I spend just some time of contemplation, contemplating my being, looking around, see what's it like to just be and not do anything. Look around, feel, and frequently is the best time of the day for me.
Yeah, things open up,
and
you
then
feel more.
Then
where you
I go to sleep after that, you see, and with my cell phones turned off. I never go to sleep with my cell phone turned on. I mean, some people might have it turned on, need it turned on because of their business or their work or some emergency or whatever.
Or it's your alarm
Yeah.
clock.
Yeah, or it's your alarm clock. Yeah.
I noticed that what was difficult was I tend to check my phone during transition times,
Yeah.
like moving from one activity to doing something else. And so this really brought it to light, like we were done and we were going to do an exercise and I just wanted to check.
Uh-huh.
And
Did
so
you?
what I did not.
Mm-hmm.
No.
What was that like?
I could feel the pull of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just quickly, couldn't I just quickly look and see?
Mm-hmm.
And what I noticed that it does for me is that it somehow regulates my nervous system.
Huh.
Like if I can just check, then I can let it go.
Do
But
other
I
people
need-
feel that too sometimes? Like just the action regulates you somehow?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah.
But not being able to check, there was still this kind of anxiety or anxiousness that
Mhm.
was
Yeah.
underlying. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that would mean to be with the impulse and to feel the lack of regulation and see where that takes you. Because often that makes you want to then do something else. Go grab something to eat, do something else. So staying then with that impulse, not having it met, and see where that goes. So the fasting can provide a way of getting that kind of information. And then over time, as the inner regulation kicks in a more natural way, you don't have to use it to regulate you. Because that's part of, our nervous systems know how to regulate themselves, but we have, and the more present we are, the more that happens. But there's a transition period there of feeling discomfort and difficulty with that feeling of lack of regulation and the need to do something to get ourselves regulated. And so much of our regulation comes from the outside so often that we don't believe we can actually learn how to regulate oneself from the inside, that our nervous system can, the more we get into that solitude and peacefulness, that will provide a certain kind of intimacy with oneself that feels satisfying. And that in itself is regulating, actually, to the nervous system.
And also the other thing about the inner solitude and being able to be in our own space and to be genuinely ourselves, that is helpful then in our relationship. We can be truly ourselves as we relate to other people in person or on the internet. So we can take that genuineness that we find and take it to our life, in our relationship with other people, to our jobs, but also through our devices. Using my phone or using my iPad and surfing the net, I don't have to stop being quiet inside. I don't have to be busy inside in order to do something outside. I'm quiet inside while I'm doing something, while I'm communicating. So my quietness, my inner peacefulness is communicated, translated into others. And I think that is one way that I think we can use technology to help us with our inner practice. In the sense, it is an opportunity for us to apply what we have learned about who and what we are in the situation of our life. Because, realization, what's called realization, awakening, has two important steps. The first step is to learn what we are, who we are, the presence of who we are, the quietness, and in the quietness we can discover that we are a fullness of presence. We can recognize our beingness, the authenticity of the being that we are. We can recognize the beingness of our consciousness, the very essence of our awareness, and recognize that is what we are, instead of our bodies, our thoughts, or our stories. And as we feel that. The next step is how to be that way in our life, how to be that way in our actions, in our interactions, and now we have the extra layer of how to be that way while we are using our devices, how we are interacting using technology. It's extending our authenticity, our genuineness, not just through the regular action of our life, but also through the extra means, extra dimensions of communication and functionality that technology is making available. So that way, technology, I see it as an opportunity to extend further our practice, but also a way of communicating it to others.
It's a conduit for our very presence.
So we're not seeing technology as always a problem. It can be a problem, and many of us are talking about how it can be distracting, but also how it can be of help, can be of use. We want to be able to put it to good use, and it is being put good use in the world in many ways. For health purposes, communication between people, politically, and all kind of ways that good use. Although some people using it for destructive use, but it is also being used in a good way, and that is why people are excited about it, about the global connectivity and all of that. But I'm also seeing it from the perspective of inner practice, of how to extend the inner spaciousness into the fiber optics that transmitted through the satellite, so that the satellites transmit, because this inner spaciousness is independent of the physical. It's beyond the physicality, beyond the time and space, and these are not really obstacles to it. They are not in the way of it. In our mind, we think they are in the way, but it is beyond them. And all of the whole of the physical world, including all of the cables and the towers and the servers, are within this constant, within the spaciousness, and they can serve it. They can become part of it. And I never tweeted, for instance. I'm starting to think, well, I might start tweeting so that to communicate, spread a vibration of quietness, peacefulness, goodwill, generosity, remembering authenticity.
So that might be...
Yeah. Another question, yes.
I just think it's really interesting that Betsy brought up the nervous system, because when I think of the internet and tweeting and this whole that sphere, it feels like a neural network or some kind of all this connectivity. It's like what our brains are doing, like it's some kind of a global brain that's emerging in the world. And so when I think about our work in the Diamond Approach and the way that we work with the mind and the chatter and all of that, seems like there's this huge potential to work with the huge global brain to, get past the chatter into the depth that's possible for that mind. And that maybe it's an evolutionary step that we're taking in order to awaken on a much larger scale. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts about that. That's very exciting to me.
Yeah, I think
of it as a brain, but I also think of it as a reflection of the underlying unity that really is the connection that we all are. So if we actually are in touch and feel our in-touchness and feel our presence as we're utilizing this magnificent communication system, that actually become more of a reflection and actually a conduit for that unity and presence.
Like an amplification of that.
It will amplify it, yeah. Amplify it, bring it into the world more, communicate it that the words we speak and the images we convey will be infused with something real, something more meaningful, since that is the ground of meaning. When people want meaning in their lives, they're not thinking of how frivolous they can be. In fact, it's the frivolity that makes them feel like something's missing, something's not there, something's empty.
No, I know we're laughing about that, but I do think it's interesting because just as you're saying that, the way that impacts me is it makes me want to be very conscious in the way that I use technology. And I can feel there's sort of like a blind spot around that where we're not generally thinking in that way. We're quickly interacting. We're just sort of doing it in this automatic way because that's the way it's come down.
Yeah, we're waiting to get present with somebody.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll do this really fast, and then I'll have dinner with somebody.
Yeah. No, I'm feeling the potential to do it differently, and that feels really good.
So I'd like us to do another exercise.
It's a perfect
to
gateway
put into
to it.
practice what we're talking about, which is that we can take our realization or our awareness of ourselves into our technology while using our devices. So the exercise you're going to do is that you're going to take 10 minutes where you're actually using your device.
Another experiment.
Or devices, regardless how many you have. You know, if you're at home, you might
Some
have
of you
three
are
or
well
four.
equipped.
You be using multitasking. The question to continue sensing your arms and legs while you're using your devices.
So the first step to being present is that practice.
Yeah. You want to be first to be aware of your arms and legs, that you are present, you are here, and then to start using the device and see as you use device, do you forget feeling yourself? Do you forget yourself? And how often? And if you forget yourself, you come back, feel yourself, and start using the device. So it's a practice of how to bring your presence while using the device, so the device doesn't take you away from yourself. Technology doesn't take you away from yourself. So you want to basically, the exercise is that you use your devices as usual, but you bring with it yourself, your sense of yourself, and see what happens.
Yes, so you want to be aware of what's going on.
Yeah, well, aware of what's on. Does the device take you away, reduce your sense of presence, or does the sense of presence actually make you more effective in your communication, more skillful in using your device? Whatever it is, you do it for 10 minutes, and after that, you have 5 minutes of writing down your experience. And then a few minutes, maybe going to the bathroom or so on, before we come back again.
And also for people watching at home, we've mentioned a few times a 6-week course we're going to be doing. So if you want something to do on your devices for the next few minutes, you could go and look at that. We sent a couple of emails before we went live, one with the new link, but the email before that had a link to the course and some details on there. Someone mentioned that it could feel a little bit like being at AA, and I was thinking the course is a kind of AA for people that have an addiction to devices, but also a great way of supporting going more deeply into this material. Also, by signing up, you have access to all of the Conscious 2 materials. Karen mentioned the Inner Critic, and there's a 2-day workshop with one of the Diamond Approach teachers going very deeply into the Inner Critic and how to work with that.
And we go into inquiry more and
that's right.
some of the other practices too.
Yeah, and we'll talk a bit more about the course at the end, but I just thought now was a good time to mention it. And we'll put up on the screen the URL for that as well. So we'll give you 10 minutes to do the exercise, as Hameed mentioned, 5 minutes to write about the exercise, as before. We'll add a couple of minutes if you want to go to the bathroom, so we'll be back in about 17, 18 minutes. We look forward to you joining us then.
Great.
So welcome back to Technology and Awakening here on Conscious 2. So again, I'm just going to start with a question from the audience, from the remote audience, before we come to our in-person audience. Someone was saying that they really enjoyed the sensing practice, but they were falling asleep doing the sensing practice rather than waking up doing the sensing practice. So I don't know if you want to, I know it's a really key practice within the school,
Right.
so and we go into a lot more detail in the 6-week course, but maybe just a couple of words on that would be helpful.
Well, the unconscious expresses itself as sleepiness. In fact, when we say we're asleep, we're really unconscious to what we're doing. And we're not aware of what's happening. So it's normal in any kind of practice that's built to help us wake up. We'll encounter sleepiness. And that's actually the state of the unconscious showing up. So if we can learn to be aware of the sleepiness, that's a good thing. And sometimes we just fall asleep. Then you wake up and go, oh, I fell asleep. But it's a challenge, because being more present is the actual stuff of awakeness. And that stuff challenges, literally, the tension patterns and the sleepiness that's inherent in our structure. And we'll feel that physically as sleep. So it means just come back, resume.
Yeah, we're used to stimulation, so there's no stimulation. Some of us just zone out, just go to sleep. Usually in all meditation practices, there are two main tendencies that people encounter. They're opposite. One of them is the tendency to get sleepy, to get dull, to get lethargic. And the other tendency is the opposite, to get distracted, to have more thought, to have more excitement. Both of them take you away from the practice. So all meditation practices, all along, is a matter of how to deal with these two sides, not to go the one or the other. So usually, if somebody tend to be sleepy, it's better to have their eyes open. Help them not
Or at
get,
least partially, to bring in more light.
and do it at a time of the day when you're not tired or sleepy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see what questions maybe you
Yeah.
guys have got. Yeah.
Okay.
So
And
I have
then
an
you.
interesting example. I play chess on my mobile phone with a friend
Yeah.
of mine. And one of the things that happens, I think, often is when I'm playing chess and I'm asleep, playing
Yeah.
chess in a certain sense, like I'm playing it automatically at a really quick clip, I tend to lose more because I'm making the move unconsciously. And when I'm awake and I'm playing chess, then I can sense in some way his asleepness or awakeness through the phone, right? And so then I can tune into the right move to make from that place. So I just wanted to share that with everyone.
So how awakening can optimize your chess game?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, the value of awakening is because it's in and of itself valuable, and feeling our presence is inherently valuable. But what you're also bringing in is an interesting piece, which is that the phone is simply a device that connects you, but presence is something that's beyond time and space. So the connection is there within time and space, but the presence and the ability to actually be in touch with another is there.
Yeah.
So there's a way that your empathy extended to his condition, and that's something that's possible. I mean, and it also just face-to-face relationships, the more present we are, the more we'll feel others, the more we feel ourselves. But you're bringing in kind of a interesting application of awakening. So.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that happens is I sense like his excitement at making a certain move.
Yeah.
And so I can see where he's going with the move.
Yeah.
So
That's really nice. Yeah. For playing games like chess and something like that, that you're more aware. I mean, even if the person is sitting in front of you, you might also be aware of that. But you're saying even through the cell phone, through the mobile phone, you can be. But that's the part of the value actually of being yourself, of awakening to yourself. It opens up our sensitivity. Our sensitivity loses some of its boundaries. Yeah.
Thank you.
Interesting.
Yes. Over there.
I noticed that I didn't want to do the exercise of re-engaging with my device because it feels so yummy to be here, in this space with everybody where we're, have our presence and contact with ourselves, but also with each other from that place. And it's really easy for me to let my device go when I'm in this kind of space or when I'm here at this school for a weekend, because it's really hard for me to let it go in my regular life, especially when everything out here is really not oriented towards presence and deep connection and just, allowing. And, but I did, pick up my device and start interacting. And the first thing I noticed was that there's this feeling of anticipation, and it's not just like my phone is a slot machine and I'm gonna get something good or interesting, but there's also a fear because I might be getting a text message from somebody that there's a problem, or an email that something's going wrong. And so I just noticed that feeling as soon as I picked it up, like, what am I gonna find here? And how connected that felt to to that reptilian brain. And that may be how I meet the world in a general sense, but it just felt really palpable and visceral and kind of intense.
So I'm wondering, in your life in general, in relationships face to face, do you tend to feel timid and wonder what's going to come your direction or how someone's going to respond to you?
Yeah, I think there's a certain kind of hypervigilance that's kind of a sort of native state for me, so scanning and kind of wondering what's coming. And I think I usually can kind of not necessarily be timid, but maybe a little bit just, really putting my attention out here.
So, and concerned about what might be out there.
Yeah, so not like a shyness or a holding backness, but just sort of a, that very, feeling of attention being out there. And the phone or the computer really helps me stay in that place of not of the self-forgetting of not, keeping the contact, but just sort of the whole world is out here.
So it enhances that already existing pattern in your personality.
Yeah.
So that's a great example of some of the things that happen in use of our devices. So as you get in touch with that, you can wake up to the fact that that's a background noise every time you're on it. As you get more present, that may replace the background noise with being able to just be there and see what's there.
And I think it's interesting that it's sort of like a more intensified, concentrated sort of version of a pattern that's just sort of my own, whether I'm on a device or not. But it's interesting to feel how very concentrated and sticky that it feels with the device.
Thank you. That's a good example. Yes, behind you.
So I wanted to share my experience and then ask a question. During the first exercise, when we were supposed to abstain, I noticed how frustrated I got because I wanted to see how many likes that the photo I posted got. So there was this urgency and this frustration, and it was this, and then I felt like there was this very animal wanting and craving. And then I went outside and saw the food, and I forgot about the photo.
From one addiction to another.
Yes, and so I noticed how that the stimulation that I get from the phone, how it's somehow related to nourishment for me.
Interesting. So it feeds you in some way.
Yeah. And as long as I'm sort of plugged in, I can, I feel good. I feel satisfied. I got the nourishment. It's like the breast. I got it. It's right there, close to me, even if it's not feeding me in that moment. So that was interesting. It turns out we got about 20 likes so far. So nice work, everybody. Meanwhile, I had about half a dozen people that are watching this messaging me, making comments about all kinds of different things, like, the quality of the talk and the features of the room, and just, somebody remarked on the high video quality. So I sent them a picture of the camera that we were using.
Very cute cameras.
Yeah, I took a picture of a camera, right?
Yeah, like minions.
So that's just this fun, like, meta social thing going on. So this gets into my question, which is about the relational field that we're creating here.
Yeah.
There's a kind of relational field. And I'm wondering, because you're talking about this transcending time and space, being, and I'm wondering, like, the people watching, there's thousands of people watching this right now. Are they part of this relational field?
Yeah.
Or is this just right here? And then I've done inquiry over Skype, so I know, like, okay, this can sort of transcend space. But time, if somebody's watching it tomorrow, are they do they feel that relational field?
Yeah.
They could.
I think in principle, yes. And it depends how sensitive and how in touch a person is. And I imagine I'm feeling in touch with the relation field of everybody who's watching this. I feel that way. I don't know how.
I actually feel they're here.
Else. Yeah.
You're all here.
I don't know how everybody else is feeling. And that shows that the virtual connection can become a conduit for a real connection that might be really happening. It doesn't have to be just an impediment.
Well, there's not a here or there in it then. It's just, it is. And what isn't confined by any kind of measurement that we have in time and space. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about the web, that when you're watching your device, the one you're watching is right there in front of you. They're not thousands of miles away. They're right here, you see. And when you're watching them tomorrow, they're right then, too. So it allows possibilities that are already inherent in our true being. Our true being, when we have our true being, we can feel ourselves in many places and feel expanded, and we feel both in time and space. And the internet, in some sense, is simulate that in a technical way.
And it can be used for us to know that.
And we will be discussing that in greater detail, actually, in the course. That's one thing we spent some time on. It's a very interesting thing.
Are there more questions from the...
There's a few interesting comments you're welcome to reflect on. So Ken Winter says, as we spend more and more time in cyberspace, what does this do to our experience of space? Something that I know you talk about in the course. And then D. Michael says, being present to devices is no different than any other life practice. And of course, life practice is a piece in the school. Maybe you want to comment just
Right. It isn't different, but it has more of a compelling pull into its world. Whereas, yes, there's many distractions, sensing our arms and legs and going throughout life. We're distracted away from our presence frequently until that's really settled as our nature. So he's correct, and it has a certain kind of stimulation, because in that little device is tons and tons and tons of distraction. It's not just, oh, there's food over there, or there's my wife over there, or my kids crying over there, or my whatever it might be. It's anywhere you want to go, anywhere you want to get away from is in that thing.
It's like a portal to a whole universe.
Yeah, it's a portal to a universe. Well put.
Yeah.
And also, one way of seeing it is when we do live practice, which means we bring in our presence into functioning, into doing things. To include the web and the internet and technology is expanding the world in a big way. We're taking our functioning to another sphere. It's more challenging, more difficult for most people. So that's why we did some practice for how to do it, to see how possible it is. But it is part of extending our being into our life, because it is, our life has expanded through cyberspace.
It's a bigger challenge, but it's also a bigger gift if we can do it.
Yeah.
Because that will have an effect, an impact that will support others in the same. So what was the second comment?
So the second one was the one about life practice. And there's just another comment as well. Someone was saying that they noticed the kind of compulsive side of the mind reaching for technology, or for devices, kind of similar to when they do their meditation practice, like kind of watching the kind of urge arise, but not necessarily jumping on that train. That's quite an interesting parallel.
Yes. Yeah, it's really the same impulses.
Yeah.
We go toward content in the mind, and if we can back up and become aware of it, eventually we'll become aware of awareness itself. When we're aware of awareness and know that's what we are, that's awakening.
Yes.
So it's a matter of pulling back, and the first step is to not go with the impulses. So if we don't go with the impulse for the phone or the device or the computer, whatever it is, and feel the impulse and be aware of the impulse, then awareness starts to be able to grow, and we become more aware, and then those things can happen within a field of awareness rather than just taking us out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. What I see is that the new technology is a kind of externalization of our mind. Is it also it's making our mind be more explicit, more external, and concretizing it into the outer world. So instead of just thoughts and dialogues in our mind, we're having dialogues on the internet. So usually in the old days when people would meditate, their inner dialogue is the issue. Now that has become externalized, become more concrete. So it's actually more obvious in some sense. So if we learn how to disengage from that, that might help us how to disengage from the inner dialogue.
Nice.
It also might make you wonder next time you're opening your brain up to the world and pulling out all your little trinkets. What's that for?
Yeah.
Yes.
To come back to something that Marshall was bringing up, part of my work involves organizing these teleconferences where people are doing meditations in different places, and part of my experience with that has been, in some ways it feels like the subtle perceptions are easier over the phone that I've found. There's something about taking away the face-to-face contact that, you know, you sort of tune in on those subtler channels and can sense certain things. Sometimes the psychic connection feels like it's easier to sense. So maybe just wanted to point to a potential that is there in that technology, a spiritual potential perhaps, that you know, is interesting in some ways.
Yeah, that can be. I mean, for some people, the phone is actually a way for them to become more connected to people because they're too indrawn, and it brings them out. That's had that effect.
Yeah.
So it depends very much on who you are, but I think you're speaking to a larger, more meta possibility of the internet being a chance or a channel to get in touch with the unity that we were talking about earlier, that is the ground of being, of all of the expressions of being that you all are. And that unity is what really is our connection. It's not even a connection. It's just what is about us that is true. And we connect through the appearance of separate beings that aren't truly separate. But the feeling of connection we usually think of as one to another. When we're really in touch with being, the connection is implicit because it is the core of what we are. And so the cyberspace can be a true reflection of that deeper sense of unity. It is a kind of unity, and we can use it for that. And use it with that consciousness. That makes it a very living possibility. In fact, the fact that it exists is because there is something that is unity in truth. Anything that exists is because there is something that's actually there as a template that enables it to be there. There's a source that allows everything to exist.
So you could think of the Platonic idea of the internet.
Yeah,
Right?
Platonic internet.
Some people think everything here has in the Platonic world there is the original template of it. But I think as we're coming to an end, I want to remind everybody that we've learned the practice, sensing, looking, listening, which I recommend. That it's up to you to do it every day in the morning. Take 10-15 minutes. Take according to your space, to your pace, and to also continue sensing your arms and legs throughout the day, using technology or anything. And the other practice we learned is the technofast every day. To practice that every day for a period of time, so that to gain some freedom from total reliance and dependence on technology, so that we can have inner freedom. You see, that we can have inner freedom, which we can use in expressing ourselves through the technology or otherwise. So that's what we have learned, and especially if you're going to be doing the course, doing these practices will be a very good preparation for the course.
So as we're coming to an end, there's just one other question before we talk a bit about the course. That someone was asking, how beyond the course, how can they find out more about this work? Because obviously there are people watching that have been part of the school, also people watching that this is their first taste of this teaching. And we had some really lovely comments. And so we can give out the website, which is ridwan.org, which will come up I think on the screen. But I know there's a number of books that Hameed's written, and there's also a number of retreat groups around the world. So I guess that would be a good way for people to find out more.
And those will be on the website.
Right, exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and let's just talk briefly about the 6-week course. What I can say is that my sense is that it's not just a course on technology and awakening. It's also a very nice course on the diamond approach, in a sense, using technology and awakening as the vehicle through which to teach it.
Right.
Because you can maybe talk a little bit about some of what we talk about and go into with it.
Well, the diamond approach actually was named that because it is an approach to experience, and we can also approach anything by using discernment and love to know the truth and following that desire to know. And so we're approaching technology and how to use that in a way that we can both see the way it inhibits our liberation by making us less and less embodied and less in touch with our feelings, less in touch with ourselves, but also how we can actually use it to bring us more in touch with each other and ourselves. So it's an exploration of both sides, like we've been doing, but in more depth with more practices. And it also gives a certain length of time between the courses. There's 3.
There's
three courses, and then there's three live Q&Cs. And so there's time to practice and then come back and get more support, questions, comments, and so on.
I think one of the things about the live Q&A sessions, which I'm also excited about, is a slightly different version of technology where people at home will actually be able to video in and ask you guys questions.
Right.
So rather than just sending questions to me, people can actually interact directly. So we build a kind of global community of people which are exploring the course, but also diving more into having support with the sensing practice and inquiry. There's a beautiful session on inquiry and how to use that as a practice as well. So
usually we do our work in actual groups or get together. So we are beginning, this is the beginning of our school, our work being given out through the web as webinars. And I thought it was fitting that we begin introducing this work and this teaching through the web by first discussing the relationship of the teaching and the web and the technology. Before we start just giving out the teaching, how to use the technology, because we are going to be using this new medium, we want to have some understanding and the interface between the two.
Don't you love it when he gets excited?
I said yesterday he was smoking hot when we were recording.
It's like not just awakening through technology. We want to wake up technology.
Right.
Yeah.
Like really to wake up the internet, that it is a flowing web of awakeness.
Yes. Yeah, and as a student of the school, I'm very excited to see, I know this is the beginning of a lot more online content, so it's exciting to see that unfold. And just to finish, before we kind of finish up properly, to finish on the course, if people sign up for the course, you also have complete access to Conscious 2. And Conscious 2 is really your all-access pass for mindfulness, yoga, and spiritual teachings online. So over 150 hours of courses like this, workshops, people like Byron Katie, Muji, many other people. So you can sign up for a premium membership and give you complete access to the course, all the other materials as well. You sign up in the next few days and you use the coupon code AWAKENING on checkout. That'll give you a 15% discount as well. But we'll send you an email with all the details. We'll also put the link up on screen. But I want to say a huge thank you to you guys for today, but also I'm really excited as the online course comes out. We've been pre-recording some of the modules and we'll be doing the live sessions. But it's been a real treat. So thank you very much.
We've learned a lot too since we're starting our own program now and we're watching how you're doing it. We're waking up to the fact that it's quite a bit of work and takes a lot of talent and skill. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for giving us the opportunity.
It's my real pleasure.
Opportunity to interface.
Partner with us.
Yeah, and also thank you to the guys behind the scenes. There's been Jill and Sandra who within the Diamond Approach Online have been a huge support and wonderful to work with. So thank you.
And your guys.
And also, Tim and Nick, thank you guys. And Ian, who was our one of our directors who broke his collarbone a couple of weeks before we came here, was going to be leading on the project. So a big love to him as well. So, And thank you guys for being here as well. It's really what brings it alive for people at home. So thank you so much for your shares. It's been really great. Right, well, and for you guys at home, thank you for watching. We really hope you've had the sense of feeling like you're here. I think we felt like we've been out in the interweb, as it's been called, with you guys. So thank you for watching, and we look forward to talking with you again here on Conscious 2, hopefully very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.